Go live on my phone. Like, share, subscribe. I am tired, but I need to drop these videos. I'm tired, and I'm going to try to do the New World Order. But this is going to be part 2 of Project 2025 because we going to read it. You're not going to just tell me something and I don't know. So we're continuing off the conservative promise. Excuse me. And this is still the Ford because the Ford is like 17 pages. So I started on it. This volume, The Conservative Promise, is the opening salvo of the 2025 Presidential Transition Project, launched by the Heritage Foundation and our many partners in April 2022. Its 30 chapters lay out hundreds of clear, concrete policy recommendations. This is recommendations. Don't mean that it's going to be done. Recommendations for White House offices, cabinet departments, Congress, and agencies, commissions, and boards. Just as important as the scope of the conservative promise recommendations is the breadth of its authorship. This book is a product of more than 400 scholars and policy experts from across the conservative movement and around the country. Contributors include former elected officials, world-renowned economists, and veterans from 4 presidential administrations. This is an agenda prepared by and for conservatives who will be ready on day 1 of the next administration to save our country from the brink of disaster. Because it is on the disaster, honey. The recession is here. Layoffs is here. Jezebel trying to get in. The Heritage Foundation is once again facilitating this book, but as our dozens of partners and hundreds of authors will attest, this book is the work of an entire conservative movement. As such, the authors express consensus recommendations already forged, especially along 4 broad fronts that will decide America's future. Number 1, restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. I couldn't agree more. While the other side want to give puberty blockers, castration, transgender policies, the homosexual agenda, which I don't have no problem, but it's the agenda that I'm speaking of. Depopulation, tampons in boys' bathroom, elementary, drag queen story time, you know. So yeah, I'm with that. Dismantle the administrative state and return self-governments to the American people. Exactly. I agree with that. Defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. Yes, because they hear the tear. They done let in so many tears. And Jezebel said that on day 1, she going to release everybody from the detention center. So you going to release the criminals, put them back in society to cause all kind of mayhem. You terrible. Secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, what our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. I agree with that. I ain't got no problem with that. What makes these 4 pieces of conservative promise so valuable to the next president that they could cut through superficial distractions and focus on the moral foundational challenges America faces in the moment of history. This was one of the secrets of conservative success in the Reagan era. One of our generations should emulate. Well, I don't know about that now. Reagan was awful to my family. My mama got laid off. They cut off our phone and repo her car, and she lost her job. And all I remember under Reagan is that bull crap, just say no, and the crack epidemic that the CIA admitted to putting in the black community under Maxine Waters with Freeway Ricky Ross. Now I remember all of that. I'm reading Project 2025 because you just not gonna tell me what's in it. I'm gonna read it to find out. So I agree with those 4 tenets. And I was just talking about Ronald Reagan. As in the late 70s, Americans today experience the failures of political and cultural elites in countless ways in the job market, in the grocery store checkout lines, on the streets, and in our schools, in the media, and within our institutions. But in truth, these daily dysfunctions are not insurmountable problems, but insurmountable manifestations of a few core crises. In 79, the threats we faced were the Soviet Union, the socialism of the 1970s liberals, and the predatory deficiency of cultural elites. Reagan defeated these beasts by ignoring their tentacles and striking instead of at their hearts. You know what? Ronald Reagan was awful to me. He was awful. Some people praise him. I don't know. For me, I didn't like Reagan. His approach to the Cold War, we win, they lose. His economic agenda, the human dignity of work, and his many awards. His platform in the culture wars, the community of values embedded in those words: family, work, neighborhood, peace, freedom. This book and Project 2025 as a whole will arm the next conservative president with the same kind of strategic clarity for a new age. Promise 1. Restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. Now, I'm with that. Because like I said, the other side want to do puberty blockers, surgery for minors, cutting off the breast, cash. They want to do all of that. Tampons in elementary school bathrooms, drag queen story time in the schools. I may not want my child to know anything about that until a certain age. You know what I mean? So that's their agenda, which I'm totally against. So I'm with this restoring the family. The next conservative president must get to work pursuing the true priority of politics, the well-being of the American family. In many ways, the entire point of centralized political power is to subvert the family. Its purpose is to replace people's natural loves and loyalties with unnatural ones. You see, this is the popular left wing. Government is simply the name we give to the things we choose to do together. But in real life, most of the things people do together had nothing to do with government. These are the mediating institutions that serve as building blocks of any healthy society. Marriage, family, work, church, school, volunteering. The name real people give to things we do together in a community, not government. Our lives are full of the interwoven, overlapping communities, and our individual and collective happiness depends upon them. Today, the American family is in crisis. It surely is. Now I'm agreeing. I had some questions when part 1, but now I'm in agreement with what they're saying. Today, the American family is in crisis. 40% of all its children are born to unwed mothers, including more than 70% of black children. That's a fact. That's a fact. There is no government program that can replace the hole in a child's soul cut out by the absence of father. That is a fact. I grew up without a father, and it was a mess. Yes, it was. Okay? My life would have been a lot better if I had a dad, um, during that time. Fatherlessness is one of the principal sources of American uh, poverty, crime, mental illness, teen suicide, substance abuse, rejection of church, high school dropouts. So many of the problems government programs are designed to solve but can't are ultimately problems created by the crisis of marriage and family. I agree with that. The world has never seen a thriving, healthy, free, and prosperous society where most children grow up without their married parents. If current trends continue, we are heading towards social explosion. Mm. Today, the left is threatening the tax exempt status of churches and charities that reject woke progressivism. And that's if you have a 501c3, then you are governed to you have to do what the government tells you, and that's why you need a 508, not a 501c3. The 501c3, you have to do the mandate of what the government tells you to continue to give funding. They will soon turn to Christian schools and clubs with the same totalitarian intent. The next conservative president must make the institutions of American civil society hard targets for the woke culture warriors. This starts with deleting the term sexual orientation and gender identity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitive abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and other terms used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant regulation, and piece of legislation that exists. Pornography manifests today in the omnipresent propagation of transgender ideology and sexualization of children. For instance, not a political gourd knot, which they claim is free speech, like property rights, sexual liberation, child welfare. It has no claim to the First Amendment protection. I agree with that. It does not. I agree with that. Its purveyors are child predators and misogynist exploiters of women. Their product is addictive as any illicit drug and as psychologically destructive as any crime. Pornography should be outlawed. I'm not going to go as far as to say that, but it should be for 18 and older. It should, I will say that. I'm not going to go that far. The people who produce and distribute it should be in prison. I'm not going to say that either. Education of public librarians who purvey it should be classed as registered sex offenders. I'm not going to say that either. This is going too far. And telecommunications and technology firms that facilitated spread should be shuttered. In our schools, the question of parental authority over their children's education is a simple one. Schools serve parents, not the other way around. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yes, I do. That is, of course, the best argument for universal school choice, a goal all conservatives and conservative presidents must pursue. But even before we achieve that long-term goal, parents' rights as their children's primary educators should be non-negotiable in American schools, state, city, county, school boards, union bosses, principals, and teachers who disagree should be immediately cut off from federal funds. The noxious tenets of the critical race theory and gender ideology should be exercised from curricula in every public school in the country. These theories poison our children who are being taught, on one hand, to affirm that the color of their skin fundamentally determines their identity, even their moral status, while on the other, they are taught to deny the very creaturelessness that inheres in being human and consists in accepting the giveness of our nature as men and women. I mean, the fact of the matter, race is a problem in this country, and it always has been, point blank, period. This is systemic racism, it's institutionalized racism. It is here, and we see it every day. Ask any Black American, we can say that. So just to throw that out, to me, is a problem. Allowing parents or physicians to reassign the sex of a minor child is child abuse and must end. I agree with that. For public institutions to use taxpayer dollars to declare the superiority or inferiority of certain races, sexes, and religions is a violation of the Constitution and civil rights law and cannot be tolerated by any government anywhere in the country. No problem with that. But the pro-family promises expressed in this book and central to the next conservative president agenda must go much further than the traditional narrow definition of family issues. Every threat to the family stability must be confronted. Okay, so now they're saying that many Silicon Valley executives famously don't let their own kids have smartphones. That's true. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they do not let their children be on social media and they write about that. They nevertheless make billions of dollars addicting other people's children to their TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms designed to create the digital dependencies that fuel mental illness, anxiety, to fry children's bonds with their parents and siblings. Federal policy cannot allow this industrial scale child abuse to continue. Finally, conservatives should celebrate the overturning of Roe versus Wade, a decision that for five decades made a mockery of our Constitution and facilitated the deaths of tens of millions of unborn children. But the Dobbs decision is just the beginning. In summary, the next president has a moral responsibility to lead the nation in restoring a cultural life in America again. And what they did was they didn't ban abortion, they just moved it to the states to control, and the people went out and voted for it. If you in a state that banned abortion, that was because of the people went and voted for it. I have no problem with that being mandated back to the states. And hell, if you want an abortion, shit, just go where they at. Or move shit. I mean, I don't see abortion not my issue. I could care less. My concern is the economy, inflation, and them damn migrants. Promise 2. Dismantle the administrative state and return self-governments to the American people as it should be, as it is written in the Constitution. Agree with that. Of course, the surest way to put the federal government back to work for the American people is to reduce its size and scope back to something resembling the original constitutional intent. I'm all for that, yes. Conservatives desire a smaller government, not for its own sake, but for the sake of human flourishing. But the Washington establishment doesn't want a constitutionally limited government because it would mean they lose power and are held more accountable by the people who put them there. Now, that's a fact. That's 100% true. No problem with that. I'm going to skip some of this. Party leaders negotiate one multi-trillion-dollar spending bill, several thousand pages long, and then vote on it before anyone literally has had a chance to read it. Debate time is restricted, amendments are prohibited, and all of this is backed up against a midnight deadline when the previous obvious spending bill will run out and the federal government shuts down. Now that's a fact. Now that's a travesty. I agree with that. That needs to stop. This process is not designed to empower 330 million American citizens and their elected representation, but rather to empower the party elites secretly negotiating without any public scrutiny or oversight. That is a fact. In the end, congressional leaders' behavior and senators here are no different from those our global elites insulating policy decisions over climate, trade, public health, you name it, from the sovereignty of national electorates, public scrutiny, and democratic accountability make life harder for policymakers, so they skirt it. It's not dysfunction. It's not dysfunction. It is corruption. 100% fact. And despite its gaudy price tag, the federal budget is not even close to the worst example of its corruption. That distinction belongs to the administrative state, the dismantling of which must be a top priority for the next conservative president. I agree. The term administrative state refers to the policy-making work done by the bureaucracy of all the federal government's departments, agencies, and millions of employees under Article 1 of the Constitution. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in the Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. This is federal law is enacted only by elected legislators in both houses of Congress. This exclusive authority was part of the framers' doctrine of separated powers. That's a fact. They not only split the federal government's legislative, executive, and judicial powers into different branches so one could check one another. It was called checks and balances. That's a fact. In recent decades, members of the House and Senate discovered that if they give away that power to Article 2 branch of government, they can also deny responsibility for its actions. So today in Washington, most policy is no longer set by Congress at all, but by the administrative state. Given the choice between being powerful but vulnerable or irrelevant but famous, most members of Congress have chosen the latter. Congress passes intentionally vague laws that delegate decision making over a given issue to a federal agency. That agency bureaucrats, not just unelected but seemingly unfireable, then leap at a chance to fill the vacuum created by the Congress preening cowardice. Mm, mm. Mandate for leadership, the conservative promise. Bureaucrats at the Department of Homeland Security following the lead of a fictitious administration order border and immigration enforcement aides to help migrants criminally enter our country with impunity. Bureaucrats at the Department of Education inject racist, anti-American, ahistorical propaganda into America's classrooms. Bureaucrats at the Department of Justice force school districts to undermine girls' sports and parents' rights to satisfy transgender extremists. That is a fact, but Supreme Court banned that. So, woke bureaucrats at the Pentagon force troops to attend training seminars about white privilege, and bureaucrats at the State Department infuse U.S. foreign aid and programs with woke extremism and intersectionality and abortion. Unaccountable federal spending is the secret lifeblood of the Great Awakening. Nearly every power center held by the left is funded or supported one way or another through the bureaucracy by Congress. Colleges and school districts are funded by tax dollars. The administrative state holds 100% of its power at the sufferance of Congress, and its insulation from presidential disciplines in a unconstitutional fairy tale spun by the Washington establishment to protect its turf. Let's be clear. The most outrageous regulations promulgated by the current administration come from one place, the Oval Office, or Obama, because this will be Obama's fourth term if Jezebel get in there. The president cannot hide behind the agency as his many executive orders made clear. His is the responsibility for regulations that threaten American communities, schools, and families. A conservative president must move swiftly to do away with these vast abuses of presidential power and remove the career and political bureaucrats who fool it. I agree. I don't care what you say. I agree. Damn, my computer is resetting itself. I wonder, can you? I agree. Properly consider restoring fiscal limits and constitutional accountability to the federal government is a continuous continuation of restoring national sovereignty to the American people. In foreign affairs, global strategy, federal budgeting, and policy making, the same pattern emerges again and again. Ruling elite slash and impose restrictions and accountability placed on them. They centralize power up and away from the American people. That's a fact. That is a fact. The conservative promise lays out how to use many of these tools, including how to fire supposedly unfireable federal bureaucrats, how to shutter wasteful and corrupt bureaus and offices, how to muzzle woke propaganda at every level of government, how to restore the American people constitutional authority over the administrative state, and how to save untold taxpayer dollars in the process. I'm in total agreement. I ain't seen nothing wrong with what has been written here just for the little things that I said. Finally, the president can restore public confidence and accountability to our most important government function of all, national defense. The American people desire a military full of highly skilled servicemen and women who can protect the homeland and our interests overseas. The next conservative president must end the left's social experimentation with the military, restore war fighting at its sole mission, and set defeating the threat of the Chinese Communist Party at its highest priority. A president who refuses to do so and uses his or her office to reimpose constitutional authority over federal policy making can begin to correct decades of corruption and remove thousands of bureaucrats from positions of public trust they have long abused. I agree with that. I agree with that. Well, this has been a half an hour, so it'll be a part 3. And we're going to start with promise number 3. Defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, boundary against global threats. All right, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, because we're going to read all of this, because you're not going to tell me what's in it. No, I'm going to read it for myself so I have an understanding. No, I don't fall for the bull crap at all. I'm a free thinker, and that's what they're afraid of. Oh, shoot. I forget I'm on my phone.